episode 4 now for the Control Alt Teach podcast. We're getting better at these intros. We're slightly getting there. I keep saying this every time, but when I re-listen back, I was like, "No, we could definitely do that better." How have you been, Matt? All good?
Good, busy. I think same as everyone. Settling back into school. I think kids are on the third week for us, so you've got over that initial uptick of energy, and now you're starting to get the bags under your eyes again. But just trying to push through with enthusiasm is the vibe at the moment.
Yeah, I think you can see I've got 2. This is 2 weeks worth now. We'll see how worse they get by the end of term. But we're not going to jabber on for too much longer because we've got another guest this week. Who have we got, Matt?
We have Scott Hayden, who is joining us from the UK. He's the head of teaching and learning and digital at Basingstoke College of Technology, and specializing in digital strategy, working with edtech in schools. Has an absolute ton of awards. Must have a full shelf at home. One here, I think you look far too young to have a lifetime achievement award, but it has one of those for using social media in education. Recognized as an edtech recognizing edtech for developing new strategies. Shortlisted for the TESS FE Awards for Teacher of the Year. TESS FE Awards for outstanding use of technology to improve teaching, learning, and assessment. And this year, Basingstoke College of Technology won College of the Year at the Edgy Futurists. He's a Google certified educator, and super excited to speak to Scott today to unpick this and carry on the pre-pod chat we had about a bit of AI.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me. I massively appreciate it. Thanks for the very generous introduction as well, Matt. Very nice.
No, I was like, I saw the social media award, then I read lifetime achievement, and I was taken back. Well,
you know what that was,
still
mate?
more
It was,
to come.
well, this is it. I'm 42 in a few weeks' time, and they gave that to me quite a while back because they didn't know what to do with people like me, as I think the sector doesn't know what to do with people like me, or didn't know what to do with people like me, which essentially is a teacher who likes playing with technology to enhance learning. Back in 2016, that was relatively novel when I was live streaming with American students and my students in the UK, having them debate and discuss hot topics like racism, gun control, Trump, and all the rest of it. And we were using social media to build professional presence, and we were developing LinkedIn profiles, and we were developing YouTube channels. And I was doing that back then and not thinking too much of it. Hashtag debates and battles every week with people around the country. And so my background's media. So I worked in media. So I was using Dropbox and social media, and I just did that for my life, my career. But I transposed that to education. It was deemed novel. So they wanted to give me a little pat on the head, I suppose, and that award was the way they did it, which was very nice because all these years later, here we are talking about it. But that led to them realising that maybe there was, I don't know, something in thinking about technology to help people in a way that made sense to them. So we shortly afterwards embraced Google as a college, and student digital leaders who then become apprentices and then grew into my team. And they've now either grown up to lead my team or leave me and go to work for the Department for Education or universities. And yeah, I'm very proud of that. We've got a cohort of student digital leaders who become members of staff every few years. And I like that. That's something I'm very proud of. The college backs the student brilliance that we have and gives them a route to work in this field we now call edtech. And now we sort of do know what it is. Back then, we didn't really.
No, it sounds great. And you have a really cool sounding job title, the head of teaching, learning, and digital. So what is the head of teaching, learning, and digital?
Yeah, it is quite cool sounding, isn't it? I was head of digital learning for a while. I was a teacher of media for many years. They gave me a few hours off to be head of digital alongside that in 2016-17. And I did that up until a year or so ago. And then it changed to head of teaching, learning, and digital. And what that basically means is I look after our digital team. That's a team of students turned technologists to help enhance teaching and learning with all things digital. And also our learning coaches, who are advanced teachers who observe, coach, train our teachers. And so observations and digital, I'm sort of in charge of that at our college.
So how big's your team? Because you mentioned students, and then like how many people are working alongside you to pull this off?
So the digital team is made up of 3 people who were once students who've become learning technologists and fully employed now, as it were. But I've also always got a cohort of 5 to 8 student digital leaders who, for work experience, are bubbling around, learning the ropes, and they get snapped up by the college if they show that growth, and that often happens. Like this year, we took on Benjamin Miller, who's our latest protege, as it were, and he was the lad who stood up first at our training day in 2023 on the stage on an AI panel discussion, and as a student in front of all the teachers said, all my fellow students are cheating using ChatGPT. What are you lot as teachers going to do about it? And he left that out there for all 500 of us to, respond. And he worked with me as a student digital leader to think about how we might move forward. He's been helping me to train staff and students for the last year so well that we then snapped him up as a member of staff at the end of his course, which is sort of the rhythm of things, really. So the digital team is 3 full-time members plus students who hopefully will one day become apprentices or staff members. The observation team, the learning coaches, they're full-time teachers. They've got 3 hours remission each a week. And within that 3 hours remission each a week, they observe, coach, and support teachers with CPD sessions or going to see their practice in the classroom.
That's so cool. So, have you noticed any trends like with the new batch of student leaders coming in? Like their focus is on something different, maybe not AI, but you're talking like a different tool, or they're saying every teacher should use this, or are you? What I'm trying to get is, are you leading the strategy there, or are you listening to them in terms of like, we see this emerging tool coming, you guys need to be aware of this?
Yeah, your instincts are spot on. In the sense that where you phrased your question, Matt, led by the students, they're Trojan horses. Is another way of thinking about it, because they go into classrooms and find out. And now I could put a backwards baseball cap on and try and act like I'm the new kid in class, but they're going to see the wrinkles sooner rather than later, But however, the student digital leaders are they can empathy map and feel and see the reality, and then feed back to me in the one-to-ones each week. And that's how we find out that Snapchat AI is actually the most dominant form of AI being used, and Perplexity AI following it pretty closely behind, actually, mate. Podcasting is enormously popular. When the students are coming with their AirPods, and we ask them about what music they're listening to as a way to get into their interests, like lyrics, for example, for English lessons, it's always quite handy to have that in. We're finding more and more this year, already a week in, that it's actually podcasts they're listening to. So it's not just the visual podcasts which a lot of students consume, it's actually the audio, long form, meaningful discussions and debates, which I think is wonderful. I want more podcasting in the curriculum, so that's going to inform our next moves actually in our digital team.
That's really cool. That's really nice. And then going back, you mentioned like you have a media background. What was the maybe piece of tech or something that you came across that went like, yeah, this could be used for education, where I can take this from like this media tool or social media tool, I can make this work in a college?
Yeah. So the big one initially was Dropbox and Google Drive, and making folders for all the students in 2014-15 so that they could have their folders to operate in the cloud. That was before we had Google Classroom and things like that at our college. Periscope from Twitter, remember that? That was the other
Oh, yeah,
one where
yeah.
we used to live stream with the Americans. I used to tweet and ask people, do you want to debate and discuss with my students? Because we're learning about critical thinking and we want to get outside the echo chamber and filter bubble of Basingstoke, and we want to be challenged. And Birmingham, Alabama, United States of America, answered the call. And they had some very different views on gun control, racism, and Trump. than we did in Basingstoke, Hampshire. And that was healthy for them because they got to see and feel from a very articulate, different perspective. And our students would come in prepared with their research when they went toe to toe. We had like an hour overlap in our timetables with the time zones, and we jump onto
Mm.
that video call and we go at each other. It was great, the most electric lessons I've ever done. So yeah, live streaming certainly. Um, in relation to other areas, or rather tech from media that I've transposed into the curriculum, I think just the use of mobile phones in general for vlogging and podcasting as a tool to capture evidence for transcription or just reflective accounts, reflecting about a project, the iterations of cooking some dishes in hospitality, or talking about the beauty nail technician needs and adaptations of a particular project those level 2, level 3 beauty students are working on, getting them to capture themselves using their phones, vlogging and podcasting. That's been one of the most satisfying things. So developing such richly human skills, oratory, communication, being sort of reflective and seeing the way they're coming across is lovely to see that. And I really fought to get that in the college years ago.
Yeah, that's amazing, because that's something I want to kind of dig into, is that college atmosphere, because you tend to have sort of much larger cohort sizes, whether they're part-time or they're adult learners, and you sort of your core who are coming in every single day, and so on, and they're all doing very different courses, from engineering maybe to beauty and so on. How do you sort of manage that large scale innovation and trying to get that coaching out to everyone?
Yes, it's diverse. So as you say, we've got some of our best teachers, and I would argue the best teachers in further education typically are the hair and beauty barbering lecturers, health and social care. They tend to always be the most innovative, creative, open-hearted. Maybe it's because of their career background before and the skill set lends itself to being a great educator. I don't know, but we've found that with our learning coaches, when we observe our teachers and we see the best practice, and we go between different departments, we, much like with the students, try to listen, try to empathy map with the user, as it were, try to find out what they need rather than to crowbar and project what we think they should be doing. We try to be mindful of the ego of the teacher, which has been bruised throughout the sector over the last 10, 15 years. They're experts, they're brilliant, they're experienced. It's our job to listen to them and to give them what they need to be their best self, to free them up, to be more capable and present in the classroom. So, although they do have, wildly diverse backgrounds, from construction and plumbing through to art and design, ultimately they are proud, experienced professionals who want to be free to do their thing in the classroom and don't want to deal with any of the admin or blocks or bureaucracy. So the learning coaches who observe with me and the digital team, in our strategy, it's very clear. Take away all barriers, free them up to do more of the human bit, the knee to knee, human to human conversations, mentoring, the bit you remember from school and college when you think back to your own education. We've got to just free them up to be more present and able to do the live in-person experiences that they are so adept at crafting. So it's quite general, I suppose. We treat everyone with that approach, and the rest follows.
That's amazing. How do you sort of do that, of seeing it as so like a resource for people to sort of dip into with your team? Is that how it's viewed, that you work alongside and with those different departments, or how do you sort of reach out to them to share that expertise?
So they have an observation, walk through observations as well. And from that, we identify, potential blind spots or potential areas they might want to improve upon. So, for example, Emma in beauty, she did like a magnificent lesson teaching beauty techniques to 17, 18 different learners. But I was watching her lesson and she had these screens that weren't being used. So we then gave her, a webcam and a wireless connector so she could go around the room. And if Sarah at the back of the room was doing a really good example, Emma could, bring the webcam over and then projected onto the screens was Sarah's magnificent exemplar. So just that elevation of an already brilliant practitioner, serving to enhance what she does. It's really crucial to us that the observations inform the way we support. But equally, there's that hope that they will come to us anyway. And that all comes from trust and relationships, really. And we've all been there a while, you know. And when you go through the mud of an academic year alongside fellow teachers, you build rapport with them. And we've got a consistent team who've been there some years now. And they understand that we are there to make their lives easier, to free them up to do what they do so well. So that's crucial to us.
Oh, amazing. It sounds like you said you've got that relationship sort of built and you maintain that throughout the year. Do you do the same with students? Do you find there's any sort of skills gaps potentially from where they've come from previous education settings, or they've come from various other schools maybe where it's higher or lower?
Yeah, particularly this year, mate. It's difficult to talk. 'Cause we're recording this, September 2024, when we have the COVID kids, the guys who in March 2020 were in year 7, and they're now with us in further education. So there's definitely some skills gaps in terms of those interpersonal social skills that we're seeing that you guys might have seen a year or two ago. They've Yeah, that is particularly challenging. So what we're trying to do, no, what we are doing actually, is in our strategy again, whether it be digital, whether it be AI, whether it be any CPD, is all geared towards ensuring that we develop core skills in staff and students. So those core skills are compassion, originality, responsibility, and empathy. What the futurist Gerd Leonhard calls core skills as opposed to soft skills, which I sort of co-opted really. And within that is this sense of building emotional intelligence, resilience, flexibility, cooperation. So we we know that is what is needed with our young people. And if you look at that and then look at the World Economic Forum and UNESCO and all these different future skill scanning reports, they all identify the same skills that we need in the future: emotional intelligence, empathy, compassion, and so on. So we are trying to control what we can control. And that is developing and prioritizing the development of these human skills in our staff. I run our education and training courses, so definitely in our trainee teachers, but also in our students, and valuing that alongside the somewhat restrictive curriculum criteria is this subtext of core skills always.
And that's one thing that stands out for me. I think one thing that surprises me and might surprise other people is like the ed tech scene. I think the people in it talk a lot more about the human skills probably than like people who aren't dealing with tech all the time. And I think it's great in terms of what you were saying, as it being an enabler to allow you to do those things and like show off that great work that girl was doing in such an easier, kind of more streamlined way. And thinking about just that, like a simple thing like a webcam, is like an underrated or underused piece of tech that you think we could all probably just take and would really like have a positive impact straight away?
Yeah, I think transcription tools are so good now, like on voice recorders. Like, get your students having debates and discussions, and when the mic goes hot, as it were, and red, like we are right now on this podcast, you focus, you bring your A game, as it were, and if your students are preparing for a debate or a discussion or a bit of a captured dialogue as a piece of assessment evidence, that's magnificent and a way to really adapt the learning rather than just another essay. So I think just voice recorder, voice notes on our phones, the transcription tools that are baked into that now are magnificent. And when your students prepare, research, get their notes, rehearse, and then 3:10, we're going to record everybody into your separate rooms, whatever it might be, just to hit the red button and to come back with their little podcast. That's great. And I don't think we're using that enough, is the truth. But even like, use 123apps.com and the voice recorder on a Chromebook if you haven't got a mobile device. And using transcripts to assess as well is something I'm starting to do more and more. We're assessing in a post-Gen AI world increasingly with more and more authentic assessment, as well we should, right? Because the essay is not the only way to assess a human, as we well know. But more vlogs and podcasts and the transcripts that come with them are wonderful, because then I can take those transcripts and then use my AI friends to give their judgment and to format the feedback from that transcript. And when I do that, what's really interesting is that my own biases come to light. For example, when I mark things myself and it's just my judgment, I'm realizing that I'm tilting the playing field somewhat in favor of people, um, more than perhaps I ever realized. And my AI buddy, who is also assessing it alongside me, the transcripts, is giving me different perspectives and justifying it. And I've got a sparring partner for this. And the efficiency with which I'm moving with the assessment is wonderful, and it gives me more energy to do the more human bits again that I love, and I don't want to get bored of. I don't want to stop doing.
I suppose it's
I
like
think you're the. Sorry, I'm going to back because I think you're the first person I've ever heard to say that AI is challenging your bias and not the other way around. Of us trying to dig at AI, but actually, like you said, use it as a coach alongside you.
Well, get this, mate. Tamara, one of my level 3 education and training students a year ago, I recorded a professional discussion with her about the first assignment. And historically, that was an essay. I did a Google Meet, we recorded it, got a transcript. And at the end of that professional discussion with Tamara, I thought, yeah, she's passed. Easy. She's got every criteria. I then ran it into Gemini with a prompt, asked it to scaffold it a particular way, suggestions, and so on, pass or not yet pass. And of the 7 criteria, she only achieved 5. So I then went back to Gemini and said, hang on a minute, she's definitely got all 7. I was in the call, in that example about Adele and cultural appropriation, it was spot on. She's got it. And the tool come back to me and said, nah, she didn't analyze at all, actually. And then it took a bit of the transcript and explained to me where the description was. And then I realized that I was tired. It was the 10th bit of work I'd marked that night. I liked Tamara, so I was tilting the field in favour of her because I work closely with her. She's a fellow staff member. And meanwhile, my kids were on the other side of the wall where I'm currently at, being a bit loud and disruptive, it's fair to say. And innumerable other subconscious reasons were leading me to make an informed or rather misinformed decision. However, the challenge of that, it humbled me, mate, and I was rocked by it. I didn't tell anybody for a week or so because I was embarrassed. But then I now find myself compelled to tell people publicly because I don't think I'm alone in having moments like that.
I suppose it's like the ultimate form of blind marking, isn't it? Like the old practice of swapping your papers with another teacher, so you don't know that student, you haven't got the relationship. It's just looking at the actual work they've produced.
Yes, a version of that. That's a good way of putting it. Absolutely. And we haven't. How lovely would it be to always, when you're marking, have your fellow teacher with you, going, "Oh, just check that for me, just double check it." I'm not sure, but that isn't the reality. The pragmatic, like day to day of a teacher, we're busy, famously. So therefore, you can't have those moments where you get the papers out and you just pass it round and you all give your assessment decisions. It doesn't work that way in reality. So having this AI buddy, as it were, my co-marker, to sense check me I found it to be enormously beneficial. Even today, I'm running our new level 5 diploma in teaching, and I was on the PDFs that come with a new specification. It's so onerous, but using Notebook LM to help be my sparring partner, my chatbot to help me get to the bottom of how many teaching hours are needed, what are the specification needs of the X, Y, and Z. It just helps me to feel like it's not just this tired bloke's skewed perspective. It's I can now use this sense checking sounding board, which I do every day.
I just do think that comes down to then people having an understanding or a training in AI to use it in that way. Because like you said, I think a lot of people have it, they still have this brain of, I go to AI once, I give it something, and I'm going to base it on that one response that it gives back every time, rather than that conversation and that ongoing thing you had. So you gave the example there of what I gave it the mark, it gave me back the mark, but actually I went back to check it and I said, do you know what? No, I think it's this. Why do you think it's that? And just having that ongoing dialogue. Do you think that's important for teachers to do and really dig in and persist with to help their practice? Or where's the way forward for training of AI and teachers using it in their practice?
It's really well said. I mean, I think I've been wheeled out in front of schools and colleges over the last year or so to do a PowerPoint about AI, and then I leave, and you do wonder what happens next, right? Because the real work happens when you're sat alongside somebody, working it out at their desk in a way that makes sense. That coaching, rather than just the sage on the stage, as it were, which I don't necessarily like doing. Is the truth. That's the starting point, and then where the real work gets done is in those relationships, those long form CPD sessions that run sequentially through an academic year. Um, a team that can help each other and suggest things. And every school's got this. They're 4, 5, 6 teachers who lean into these opportunities, and making a group email for them, or making a forum or an AI ethics team meeting where they meet every month, so they can have that sense of momentum and community. So it isn't just on one person to train and upskill everybody, it becomes a team. Luckily, we've got our digital team and our learning coach team, and we've got that infrastructure in place. But every school's got those teachers who are open hearted, who think there's something in this. And if it's framed in a way that it will save you time, it will give you evenings back, it will free you up to be more present and do the things you want to do in your personal life. And then in return, you can be more energized in your day to day. It will. It will. And to give them tangible examples of how a scheme of work can be enhanced so quickly is, yeah, it's magnificent. Giving them tangible wins that scratch an immediate itch is the crucial way to go about it. So we started with scheme of work prompts and taught all of our teachers how to prompt using Gemini in May 2023. Actually, at our college, I wrote the prompts for them, and extracting British values, Bloom's taxonomy objectives, and so on. And our planning was pretty good for the first time in 15 years that I've been at the college. Our planning was there for September, which is good. And then staff were coming back after the summer going, yeah, I actually stopped a little bit over the summer because I didn't have to do bloody endless admin. And I think that one in particular, because it scratched a very particular itch at a particular time of the year, led to goodwill. And then we followed that up with, starters and plenaries, stretch and challenge questions, or creating slide content and particular focused prompts that could hit as many people as possible is the best way I can advise going forward when you're showing your fellow staff members how to use AI.
So you mentioned earlier before the pod, you were chatting about the training you've been doing with students as well. How are students finding AI? What's their interest level? Is it sky high? Because loads of us are getting really hyped about it and talking about how it can save you time and do these things, and generally finding it quite exciting. Are they a bit meh? Is it just like, oh, just that thing? Or are they excited as well?
Yeah, some are a little bit indifferent, mate. And that's yes, that was challenging this week. So I've done an AI presentation to all full-time learners this week. Got 3 more to do tomorrow. Then I've done at college, and within it, I show them deep fakes of me, and then they got to pick the real me, and then we show them the prompts we've created for them, and we introduce them to the new AI module we've built for them, which they're all going to complete over the next month. An AI module that shows them how to prompt, ethical issues to be mindful of, and a quiz at the end, and we make deep fakes of our principal, and they've got to identify which one is the real him. I think it's all right, but of course, I think it's all right. I like to think I'm quite full of wonder and curiosity about all these things, and they are not me. And the truth, as you've sort of alluded to, is that there is some apathy and indifference from a lot of learners about this. Interestingly, and again, the digital leaders become really important here, because rather than me go, why aren't you fascinated and curious about this? And I'm, because the person I am, I do get excitable about these things because they're my things, and that's what I like. It's important for me to take myself out of my perspective as a 42-year-old head of digital learning, and to think about, a 16-year-old who's got a part-time job and numerous other interests and uses their phone for X, Y, and Z and not the things I use it for. How might we think from their perspective and show them a way that makes sense to them? And our student digital leaders will be giving us those insights. So we're going to be doing the AI module. That's the first way to go. But from that point, it's going to be observations and student digital leaders giving us more insights, because there's more apathetic students than I had accounted for. Of course, there's those bright and brilliant ones who lean in, adapting and simplifying resources as if I was 10 years old. People were adapting resources to accommodate for their learning need. People creating bespoke revision materials for their beauty exam, relating it to celebrities and influencers and fashion icons that they care about. We're seeing that, but that isn't everyone, and it's crucial we think of how we can help everyone.
You'll be interested to see at the end of the year to see, because we're only a couple of weeks into this school year, or maybe one. I don't know how long. I don't know how long you've been back. We've been back 3, so it might be interesting to look back in like June just to see if they've come on board or if that's like a huge gap between those people. Because I can imagine the people that are excited and get into it, the stuff they're doing with it, as you describe, that's probably going to give them some form of advantage.
Yeah, that divide. We talk about digital poverty and digital divide, and yeah, I'm seeing it manifest in a very different way with those who are just curious and full of wonder and open-hearted to this, and realize maybe they're being more mature about it. I don't know, in the sense that I can personalize learning and make things make sense to me. That takes a level of metacognition, though, doesn't it? And a level of maturity that perhaps not all learners have by the time they join us at age 16. And those learners who learn perhaps differently and who've had barriers to learning and are coming in with their arms folded a little bit, yeah, there's going to be potentially a divide, a disparity, which I need to be really mindful of. And that said, a way we are trying to combat that is working with our learning support team and giving them real focus training on AI prompts to personalize and explain and simplify and to adapt resources for people with the learning needs that they support. So hopefully they'll be able to bridge the gap for a lot of people. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting year ahead in terms of the way people adopt this.
No, I think that's really great because so we've won people over at my school by getting that send information or IEP or learning needs and saying, because it's really hard as a teacher to get that right. For every lesson that you teach, you might have nailed it for like this one lesson that you've done before and you found something that vibed, but differentiating every lesson, it can be really challenging and stretch you.
So that was your way of doing it, was it? That was the in.
It was one part of them, yeah. Some of it was like the same thing as you, like lesson planning, question generation. We haven't done like the marking assessment things yet, but we've done a little, like tiny little bits of it, but mainly like supporting teachers with questioning. And if you don't know how to do group work or you're struggling with group work, like ask it to coach you on how to do a bit of group work based on the lesson that you want to teach. So that's been big payoffs for teachers.
That's cool. I like that. Yeah, I had a learner with ADHD I supported last year, and I was getting it wrong. I was just getting it wrong with my approaches, and then using it to create a learning support plan, taking out any GDPR sensitive data, of course, but just giving an overview of the characteristics and the learning need. It gave me 3 or 4 strategies that landed, that worked, that actually made an impact and helped them to complete the qualification, which I wouldn't have gone to, is the truth. I wouldn't have thought to have gone to. So generating learning support plans is massively advisable. I completely agree. Another thing we did recently, which I really liked doing, was bringing to life the theorists that the students were studying, like Lev Vygotsky, whoever it might be, so they could chat to Lev. That was cool. That was really nice. Always being skeptical and looking for sources to back up everything, but yeah, we're leaning in, fully to this, and we're excited about this year. The way students use it is the second part, really. The first part for us was getting staff using it, and it's now just a part of the workflow. I did a survey which closed last week with our staff, who since May 2023 have been using Google Gemini and Canva and Goblin.tools. They're the main 3, really. And in year 1, it was 5.17 hours a week was saved for more meaningful human tasks, according to the staff that completed the survey. And it was quite a chunk of staff that did. In year 2, which, last week is about 14 months on, is 5.45 hours a week saved. So it's not just maintained, it's actually improved a little bit as well in terms of the amount of time saved.
Is that individual teacher? So everyone's getting 5 hours, we reckon, on average?
Yeah, I mean, it's 50 teachers that completed that survey at the time of talking to you, and they've all reported back a mean average, that is, of 5.45 hours a week to focus more on bits they want. And the testimony is beautiful. Just the stories about having an evening with my wife, for once, rather than just doing admin and disappearing and going to the gym, looking after myself more because I'm not worried about the admin so much. And that's the stuff, right? That to me, the well-being element of AI is not spoken about enough in terms of how it can enhance our well-being if we use it the right way.
Can you give us like some direct sort of examples of that? Because you've mentioned a couple of tools throughout, and like I think Google Notebook's a really great one for just putting in like documents to then question and get like an interactivity out of. So because I do it we've been talking about SEND there. I shamelessly just take the education endowment funds, all their documents, and I pump it in there and I just talk to it. Like that's a great one. Instead of reading and trying to dig out, if I'm looking for something specific, then that's what I'll do. Is there like a tool or a real quick thing for anyone listening who wants to save an hour, save half an hour? What can they do to really bring back a bit of time?
I think Notebook LM is quickly becoming the one. I think you're spot on to mention that. But a way to start, though, if you haven't dabbled, is Goblin.tools. It's browser based, no sign in needed. So in Goblin.tools, there are magnificent, simple, easy to use little tools, and Formalizer is one of them. So Formalizer enables you to either turn your mic on or keyboard mash in something you want to say, and then you can press a button and it will formalize your language, make it more professional, more sarcastic, longer, however you want. And you can adjust the chiliometer, to turn up the heat as to the intensity of the sarcasm or the professionalism. So, for example, a use case of that is we had a construction teacher last year who was a passionate guy, really passionate. Like he got so personally when students didn't do their best. But as we know, life gets in the way, and then there's myriad reasons as to why students don't necessarily show us their best self in the time we have with them. And he would, in his feedback, was quite passive aggressive. Now, why didn't you come up to the workshop that I put on for you? It's the fourth time you've let me down now. You disappointed me. And, anyway, try again and capitalize the first letter. And his feedback read a bit like that. But what we found was using Goblin.tools with him is that we could hit the mic and he would just be able to talk and vent his disappointment. And then we could make it more professional, as it were, and turn the chiliometer up a bit. And it sort of extracted and filtered out his passive aggressiveness, and it formatted it in a way that was, I really believe in you. I know you want to go to an apprenticeship next year. Be sure to attend the workshops that we're putting on for you, and so on and so on. And his feedback was just magnificent. And he got into this flow of doing it. And when he did it, other people in the staff room would watch him do it and come along, and that's typically how it spreads, right? One person like that, someone you wouldn't expect to be doing it well, and then they tell someone, that's wonderful. So Goblin.tools is great, Formalizer, but Notebook LM, as you mentioned, Aaron, is magnificent because you can give it a PDF or a document or a website, and it will talk only to that PDF, document, or website. So it's not going to the internet and hallucinating too much. It will even tell you the sources, exactly where it found the information it needs. So I was using it today, Aaron, for my for the level 5 course I'm running in terms of the handbook I've created for it. All the while extracting straight from that lengthy PDF from the awarding body, NCFE, because they're lengthy, these PDFs, and I want to just double check I'm getting the right information. So yeah, really nice couple of tools to play with if you haven't done so already.
Yeah, I feel for you. I'm a BTEC teacher, so I do get where there's like 3 or 4 huge PDFs with different information that you need of assessment over here and so over there. And like you said, how much teaching time for this assessment is in a completely different document when it shouldn't be, and so on. And it can be just an absolute nightmare to find that.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want to get it wrong. You want to make sure you're doing a good job, and when you're a course owner, course director, and you're responsible, as it were, you want to just double check things sometimes, because it's a lot of responsibility. So using it in that way to extract information from files, we've all got these files in folders scattered around our cloud accounts or actual PC desktops. To put into Notebook LM and be able to summon that information and have notebooks that are themed for different subjects. For example, in our automotive courses, we're experimenting with something whereby they've made some notebook LMs for their students to talk to, like chatbots for their courses, as it were. So the students in week 1 have had their personalised chatbot for their course. So they can say, "When's my assignment due in for James?" Or "When's my next lesson?" And Notebook LM has become this little chatbot, which is a really innovative use. James and Zach from our automotive team are just wonderful. They're this new generation of teachers who did an education training course last year, having joined from industry, who are just embracing this opportunity to use AI. And their open heartedness infuses their classroom and the way that they're using AI to research and study as well. So, yeah, it's often the way, right? The wonder and curiosity of a teacher will typically impact the students. We need to make sure all staff have that wonder and curiosity, and that's sort of my job at the college, to try and help our staff find that.
Did you? I just out of interest, me because mainly because I deal with like younger kids. Have you like teaching kids how to prompt? Have you had any pushback from parents or staff going like that cheating narrative? Or you're just teaching them how to cheat, or you're stripping something out of the learning process? Have you had any of that, or has it all been quite well received?
Not yet, mate, but I reckon this year, because we focused entirely on staff
Ah,
before,
okay.
and it's working with staff to use it well. And in some controlled case studies, I've worked with students, but with those students, they've been consenting over 18-year-olds who've allowed me to do this as part of an experimental prototype. I've shown some under 18-year-olds it as well, prompts they can take into their personal revision, which they have done. But largely, it's consenting over 18-year-olds and staff that I've worked with so far. This year, we can't pretend that students aren't using this anymore.
Yeah.
And as frustrating as it is that we don't have that univocal tool or that one unambiguous, this is the AI tool to use with students, sandbox, playground for us to practice AI with them in, but we don't. There are innumerable different tools, so we have to teach them sort of more broader skills, as it were, with AI. So this module, which goes live on Monday, and for 2 weeks, all students will be doing it. Yeah, there'll be fallout from that, I'm sure. With some people sort of coming up with the cheating narrative you've touched on, and I've got to be prepared for that. But luckily, I've got Notebook LM to help me in my response when it comes.
Well, you could just scream at Goblin tools and it'll turn it into a formal response.
Maybe.
No, I think we're in similar positions because I think for us, like most of it's been staffed for a year, and now it's like bespoke chatbots for certain situations just being pushed out, but controlled because we're still feeling our way forward. And the same as you, like there's a narrative that everyone's like digital natives and they're just going to pick this up. But I've been using it with year 9, and I teach 78 of them, 79 of them, and it's a huge split down the middle of ones that know how to naturally interact and ones that are just going like, oh, it's giving me an answer, or it's told me to do this. Like, it's giving me this answer. Why don't you just ask it to explain it if you don't understand? Oh, I can do that. So I'm going to stop next. The start of next week is going to be a little how to question your AI. But to be fair, they have never been asked to question something that's given them knowledge before. If you know what I mean? Like if they put their hand up and say, "Hey, teacher, can you like explain that in a way I can understand, or link it to something that link it to a real life experience that I get?" Like it'd be seen as rude. So probably they need to flex that muscle a little bit as well.
That's a really good point. And the critical thinking element of this is something that we're going to be focusing more and more on this year. I can see that. There's a couple of great websites you might have seen, yourbias.is and yourfallacy.is. They're magnificent sites. They basically identify all of the cognitive biases that we as humans have when we encounter information. And as a way to train discussion and debate in young people, they're just wonderful. You can even get playing cards and posters from their website. It's a very cool website. I think those skills are needed more than ever, whether it be identifying the halo effect, or whether it be, I don't know, Texas sharpshooter, where someone selects data that fits their argument only. There's different fallacies that we fall foul of when we're debating and discussing. And I think it's down to us as educators to be able to, of course, show these wonderful tools to our young people, but then to really follow up with the critical thinking, the why, what, when, where, how, the Socratic challenge, as it were. Now, ideally, the AI would have that baked into it, right? And they would be helping people to learn rather than just trying to please them with instantaneous answers. That's what we really want. That's what I know the Khan Amigo, Khan Academy guys are trying to build. And that's kind of cool. I like the idea of that. In pragmatically, I haven't had a hands-on experience of it. With my 10-year-old daughter, I train AI to be her personalized chatbot with prompting to get it to be a Socratic challenger. But as we know all too well, too many AI tools are very quick to please us and don't necessarily value the process as much as we would like them to.
That's a Socratic question to work because I tried a chatbot with Combined Science Group at the end of the year, and it was just programmed to Socratic question them, and they found it too intense because usually in the class someone's going to cycle around and ask you a question every now and then, but having something just like boom, boom, boom. So what do you think about that? Really pushing them on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah.
That you could see them sweating, like it was too much for them.
Yeah, you want some reprieve, don't you, after answering? Yeah. Go, flip me and breathe, mate, you know? Yeah, I get that.
More questions in 10 minutes with a chatbot than had been asked in a week.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the future of homework. That's where I really want to see it going, is this point of homework is a prompt and the teacher crafts this really nice paragraph of, like I said, you are going to be questioned about so-and-so topic, and it's going to be these kinds of questions for the next 20 minutes or so, or like I said, for about 20 questions. And it's just going to go back and forth, back and forth. So Eton have been doing some really good work with their cookbook on this. And I love that idea of it. Of just going, here's one liner from me of it's going to save me, the teacher, a load of time because I don't have to panic about setting the resource, making it look pretty and so on and setting it. But you're just going to get these live action sort of questions and you're going to have to give really good answers that's going to question and probe you on it.
That's nice. I like that, mate. That's good. I'm every week or so with my daughter. She sits and quite Fred. That's the name of the chat that she talks to, the maths chatbot, and it's relating to mathematical concepts from her feedback from parents' evening. It's relating her gaps in knowledge, which I know about because of those reports that I photographed on Google Lens and fed to the machine. It's relating it to Olivia Rodrigo and Beetlejuice, and things that she's interested in, and using analogies, metaphors, and examples that connect with her. And she goes, "Ah, right, I like that thing I saw in that program that time. Oh, okay, I get it." Like Scrubs, she's watching Scrubs at the moment. So next time I do it, she's going to be using the characters from Scrubs as people in the analogies and metaphors, which just a way to connect it and make it make sense is that resonates for us. You know, we want to have it make sense. We want to understand, and trying to take away that friction when we're learning complex ideas is useful sometimes, right?
That was one of my first buy-ins as well, was that real world examples, because every year I'm eking away from the age of my students and what they understand or what they're into. And I have to accept that I don't know what they like or what's current, but be able to put in like, we're going to do a load of real world problems about Beetlejuice and having it make them for you straight away and like link, just bespoke it for your students. That was another thing I really got me like switched into ways I could use it very early on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really enjoying working with our English team at the moment. I've been wanting to do this for years because, for my money, the greatest educator of our time is a chap called Cole Kushner, who does the Dissects podcast. The Dissects podcast is it's on Spotify. I bought it a few years back. He takes a masterpiece album, breaks it down track by track, beat by beat, lyric by lyric, and treats Lauryn Hill's Miseducation of Lauryn Hill or Tyler the Creator's Flower Boy. He treats them with the same respect as we treat King Lear. as it were. And these English literary analyses are conducted, and they're goosebumps good, man. They're just, he's the greatest educator I've ever experienced. And every time I listen to his podcast, I pause it numerous times to have like a moment of reflection or to scribble down notes about why am I not approaching that level? It's so wonderful what he's doing. Anyway, I've taken roughly that idea. I'm trying to get our English teachers use song lyrics more and more as a way to sort of teach these resit GCSE students, which is what we have to do in further education. If you don't get your 4 or higher, government dooms you to do it forevermore. But using song lyrics, and in particular, because I'm a big hip hop fan, using the Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef as a way to actually talk about lyrical analysis. Because fascinatingly, in May, when Kendrick and Drake went at it, Genius.com, which is a great website for lyrics analysis, crashed because of the sheer volume of young people flooding this website trying to decipher what essentially is two men writing poems at each other. And that gives me hope in the sense that there's this fascination and curiosity. And shame on us as educators if we're not helping to connect with young people and the communication, English skills development in the way that they are, because they are. And I think there's something in that with using lyrics in particular to help people, and podcasts as well with communication development. I think we're missing something there.
So you've mentioned quite a few sort of things. I want to touch on that of podcasts, lyrics. We've touched a little bit on AI, personalising learning, and so on. What do you sort of see as the future of education then, moving forward? And there's a couple of things you're trying at the moment, but what do you really think the winner is in the next 10 years that we're still going to be talking about?
I think you sort of touched on it when you mentioned about having that sort of AI, sort of the prompt from the teacher for the homework. You know, the idea of having that personalised learning approach that runs as a seam, as a back channel to their learning. So they have this constant personalised AI Socratic challenger as an agent, as it were. So Aaron's agent, and after every lesson, after every day, your homework is personalised as a way to consolidate, stretch, and challenge what Aaron did on Tuesday's lesson, for example. I can see that coming sooner rather than later, and I can see classroom environments increasingly valuing the live experience, in person, human skills development side of education more and more. So, what I mean by that is when they come into the classroom, they're doing team tasks, they're up, they're physically moving, doing things, projects, communicating, activities, not sat round in rows, tapping away or listening to the guy do the PowerPoint, but live, vibrant, effervescent experiences that you don't want to miss. You can't, screen record that. It's happening. You don't want to miss it, and I can see that being an exciting time for education if we start to think of the classroom in that way. And I am doing my best to try and help our teachers think of it in that way because they travel a train and a bus and in the winter through the hail sometimes to get to your classroom, and they're going to soon, the students go, well, why did I do that? If you're making me do something I could just log on and do with my AI agent at home, why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
And that challenge, I think, is going to help us elevate our game a little bit.
So what position do you see the teacher playing in that? Are they facilitator? Are they guide? Are they just setting the challenge? Where do we fit into that?
A curator, a conductor, I think. That's how I see it. That's how the best lessons I go into observe. I still teach myself, I train our teachers, but the best lessons when you go into observe and you can't tell where the teacher is. You can tell straight away, oh, this is good. They're just, they're doing things, they're creating. So and the teacher is, hitting, scaffolding the beats of the lesson, as it were, the rhythm of it. But ultimately, it's the students that are leading, and that's what I want to see more of.
I'm going to start calling myself conductor from now on. That's where I'm going
Conductor
to go.
Aaron's got a ring to it.
Yeah, I'm gonna try that. I'm going to see how I can conduct from the back.
I feel like we need like the old train hats, like the train conductor. Like,
I was thinking more, the sort of the operatic sort of meaning of it. But that's what it is. You felt that feeling when you're in the flow state in the classroom, and when it's really happening, and it's happening, and you're at your optimal best, it's flow. And that idea of conductor, and you're just making it, it's the best. And so the idea of the teacher being trained to, use the tools, as it were, and the resources and the physical space in the optimal way is how I'm thinking of our education and training courses, to be honest with you. That's how we're training our new teachers to already start thinking, because they are creating these environments, digital and physical, and they are at the heart of them, making sure that they are pruned and curated just so.
Sounds brilliant, to be honest. Sounds amazing.
It does, yeah. I was about to say I've gone quiet because I'm just thinking of that time, like you said, where you felt you're just in it, and you've got that lesson, you've got those kids, you're bringing them up, and then you're going, actually, no, we're going to quiet down now. We're going to get that written down now. We've got the ideas and so on. And like I said, you had them at your bidding and so on. I was just thinking of a time where, do you know what I mean? You had it, and it feels so good.
Yeah, it's it makes it all worthwhile, right? Those moments.
Absolutely. So I think we are literally bang on an hour, and we've covered so much, and there's so much value in that. So genuinely, thank you so much. But we do like to finish off with some quick fire. And I think this is going to be a shock. Normally we can kind of guess where our guests are going with this, but we've just got so off target from our actual planned questions. I don't know what your thoughts are on any of these. So hopefully this be quite enlightening. So feel free to answer however you please. But we're going to ask you, Apple or Android, Scott?
Android.
Microsoft or Google?
Google.
Teams or Classroom?
Classroom.
ChatGPT, Gemini or Claude?
ChatGPT.
Phones or no phones?
No phones.
iPad or Chromebook?
Chromebook.
Interactive panel or good old-fashioned whiteboard?
Good old-fashioned whiteboard.
And visualizers or screen grabs?
That's a good question, that. Visualizer for the live, as it's happening, experience of it, yeah.
I tell you, you were the first person who's ever stuck to quickfire and has just given one and never got... We haven't tempted you to pull off into a tangent.
Good.
Perfect. But genuinely, thanks so much for your time. That has been amazing. We really appreciate you coming on. And this is going to clip up absolutely beautifully. Social media is going to love a lot of these.
Okay. And that's what it's all about.
It is, yeah.
The Opus clips. That's what we're in it for.
Thank you, chaps. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, it's been great. Like I've got a notepad like scribbled full of websites and notes. So I know I'm going to go away with a lot of things to do after this. I'm going to go start shouting at Goblin tools and see where it does.
Do it, absolutely.
Yeah.
All
right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, sir.
See you later. Bye-bye. Bye.